have many, many old friends, and I always think that it's important when you get into politics to have friends you had before you were in politics and to understand what's on their minds. And he's been a friend of mine for a long time. He sent me unsolicited emails, which I passed on in some instances, and I see that that's just part of the give and take.
Well, that's Hillary Clinton from May 19th talking about Sidney Blumenthal, a former aide who never was hired as her aide at the State Department, but who continued communicating, and especially on Libya policy. This has now moved to a different element, new emails. The Benghazi Committee referencing, putting out. Here's Trey Gowdy, the chairman's letter, releasing this. Dozens of emails between Clinton and Blumenthal show an individual who tried to heavily influence the Secretary of State to intervene in Libya. Blumenthal pushed hard for a no-fly zone in Libya before the idea was being discussed internally by senior U.S. government officials. Clinton told Blumenthal that she was pushing the option with the UN Security Council and to stay tuned. Shortly thereafter, the U.S. pushed a no-fly zone through the UN Security Council. About business dealings Blumenthal had in these email exchanges from Libya. We're back with the panel. Steve, we should point out these are the latest batch of emails that were just received from the committee. This is not stuff that they just... They
not
didn't
turned
turn
over initially.
Yeah.
Right. So she said she included everything. She said she turned over everything. These were not part of that initial email production. That's the first problem. I mean, there's some process stuff we need to deal with, some substance stuff we need to deal with. These were not turned over initially. They were not, as she claims, not sending her unsolicited emails. She solicited more information from him virtually every time they corresponded. So what she said there was a flat categorical lie. It was untrue. She was soliciting information, and she did it repeatedly. The other problem is Blumenthal wasn't allowed to work at the State Department. It's not just that she chose not to hire him. It's that the Obama administration had a prohibition on Sidney Blumenthal working at the State Department. So here you have this guy who'd been blackballed from the Obama administration sending emails, the first batch of emails that are in this Gowdy letter. He makes an explicit case based on the president's polling numbers for ramping up military action in Libya. Draws the connection, says we need to do more, the United States needs to do more so that the president does better politically. The second batch of emails has Sidney Blumenthal making the case for U.S. contractors. He wants to elbow out the French contractors moving into Libya to get contracts from the post-Gaddafi government. He wants to elbow out the British contractors, and he wants U.S. contractors to have the highest priority. Well, the U.S. contractor he really likes is Osprey Global Services, which he is working on. He's brokering a deal between this company and the new Libyan government, and basically gets Hillary Clinton, or asks Hillary Clinton to do his bidding on this. And at the end of that email exchange, she says to him, she doesn't tell him to, go pound sand or this is inappropriate to do this. She ends the exchange by asking him anything more to convey before she goes and has this meeting with the Libyan opposition. I will say, I think this is the biggest development on the email story, on the Benghazi story, that we've had since we first learned that she had this private email server. The stuff in this 13-page letter from Gowdy to Elijah Cummings is absolutely explosive.
Meantime, all the coverage is obviously on what Kevin McCarthy said about the Benghazi Committee, and not the new batch of emails that the committee just received in the past.
But if you're a Democrat, I mean, this is out of the cheesiest TV show about crony corruption in power at the highest level of government. If you are a Democrat right now and you know that yesterday morning you learned there was a second company that might have stuff in the cloud of her emails, they were worried, so was the first company, that perhaps they were involved in a shady cover-up, that they were being roped up into a cover-up. The FBI just took 4 servers from the State Department yesterday, or in the last couple of weeks, but we learned it yesterday, because they need to ascertain just how much and how classified information flowed from her aides through her private server for 4 years. And now this, forget that it's the day of Kevin McCarthy and other headlines. How is this not so terrible when you learn that this is your candidate and there will always be more revelations? Just give it 3 days.
All right, speaking of revelations, I only have 30 seconds. One thing I forgot to talk about in that last panel was this Walter Jones letter that comes out right before the conference. This is a congressman from North Carolina. He says that no one in the leadership should run for leadership if they have anything, in his words, voter distrust, anything embarrassing that will come out as a there's a letter before you run for leadership, suggesting that he knew something.
You know
he
exactly
said he
what
didn't.
he's suggesting about Kevin McCarthy's private life. You're going to see endless stories on this subject over the next couple of days, and I would just remind conservatives that privacy may not be guaranteed under the Constitution under Griswold versus Connecticut, but it's still a sacred thing, and you ought to pause before you violate it.
You have to say that it also happened suddenly, the change from he was going to run for speaker.
It did, but this is, look, you can oppose Kevin McCarthy, and I probably would, because his politics are not mine. Doesn't mean you have to destroy him as a man, and people should pause before they do that.
Stay tuned. Quick down the row on today's top story after this break.